Party, the French cast their votes today in the second round of snap general elections called by President Emmanuel Macron after his centrist party suffered a major defeat in the European Parliament vote. Well, so now we're going to go to our guest to discuss this in more detail. We have Professor Zielonka from the University of Oxford joining us. Good evening, sir. Delighted to have you with us.
Good evening.
So, we have the very first exit polls. What is your take on them?
Well, it goes against all, and it looks like the strongest party will be a radical left coalition, followed by Macron party, and only third, the party of Le Pen. Exit polls sometimes go wrong, but but they cannot go so wrong to basically reverse their trend, which means that the effort of Macron party and left-wing coalition to basically block Le Pen work once more, and the French voted for more center-left policies.
Sir, so it seems that this cordon sanitaire did work indeed. So what happens now? I mean, we'll have a very different arrangement to what we discussed before. Who do you think will be prime minister? What will happen following this vote?
President Macron knows who will be the prime minister, and maybe he doesn't. He probably waits for the official results. He can reappoint the current prime minister. He can create a government of technocrats. He can, what is unlikely but possible, radical left. If these exit polls are correct, that there will be a hung parliament, which means it will be difficult to make any serious decisions in the one of the most important members of the European Union.
Right, indeed. Well, at least for a year, right? Because this is when Macron will have the right to call the next election.
If he chooses so, but we don't know whether this will be the case. You know, 1 year in contemporary politics is a solar era.
That's right. So what about Jean-Luc Mélenchon? Because the left did very well, so perhaps we should take a closer look at him as a political personality. What is your take on Mélenchon?
He just made a speech where he promised to stick to his program, basically a social program, and a program which is not the one of President Macron. So interesting to see whether these two politicians can find any modus vivendi to govern the country. One thing is to block the radical left from. One thing is to block radical right from taking over parliamentary majority. Another is to find joint solutions for governing the country. None of those parties have sufficient number of parliamentarians to carry the day. So it will be interesting. But this is what politics is. We will follow this with anxiety, if not trepidation, in the coming months.
So what kind of possible alliances in the French parliament will be looking at?
Well, there certainly will not be alliance with the radical right, but I doubt whether alliance between Macron party and the Mélenchon coalitions will be possible. So they will probably work on individual issues and try to get majority on certain aspects of policies without really having an overall agreement where France is going to.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, this result is different from what we were expecting. I guess the supporters of the left can breathe a sigh of relief. However, you've mentioned that Mélenchon promised to stick to his program. What are some of his key principles, key postulates that he promised?
His agenda is a largely social one. He wants to the retirement age, which was increased by he wants to increase the minimum wage. He will also struggle hard for other words of all the citizens and workers. This is, of course, a coalition of left-wing parties. Mélenchon himself is more radical than, for instance, Socialist Party, which is more center-left rather than radical left. But Mélenchon symbolically is a winner of this contest, and he is not going to give up, and he is an experienced politician. So you cannot make any politics in France today ignoring him.
Right. So one of the issues that were highly contentious and that people were worried about, of course, is migration. How do you think the issue of migration will be handled right now by this new government?
Well, I'm afraid most of European on the center have a symbolic policies towards migrations, thinking that you can deal with migration on the borders, on state borders. This proved impossible. Even Great Britain, which voted for Brexit to regain its borders, migrants rising, geopolitical position Poland, which would expose them to either migrations through the Mediterranean Sea or through the Belarusian border. So the kingdom was unable to deal with migrations on the border because if you want seriously, you have to address roots of migration, which is war, poverty, and climate change in the Middle East and Africa, in particular in our case. And this requires years, concerted efforts, and not quick fixes, which politicians like. What I expect, though, is that unlike the radical right, we will have this political discourse focused not just exclusively on migration, but on many other issues, particularly social issues, which are important for citizens and indicated not just by results of these elections, which again proved that migration is not the most important issues, because had people thought this was the most important, then Le Pen would carry the day. No, people obviously thought that social issues are more important, and the radical left carried the day. So there will be probably less migration-centered narrative by this government, and there will be probably also more effort to integrate migrants within the French community, which is a difficult task as such. So we will see.
Right, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. Professor Jan Zielonka from the University of Oxford, thank you, sir, for being with us this evening.
Thank you very much.